Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I am back for another book review video, as you can tell by the title. I feel like sometimes when we say what we're going to talk about, it's already in the title, so kind of redundant. Don't let the sunshine coming through here fool you. It is freezing in my house, so kind of casual today. So I read, let me see here. I read 6 books, but I'm going to talk about 7. It gives you a little preview of how one of them went this month. It was a pretty good reading month. There was a couple of the books that were rather disturbing, had some disturbing content to them, but I finished them. But I will give you warnings for sure, so you know if it's a book that's going to be for you or not. And I always look over here to the side because I use Google Keep to track my reviews for each month. So first one, Before She Disappeared. The Goodreads rating, which I've had people request that I talk about that, is for this book is 3.88. My rating is 4 stars. That's out of 5 in case anybody is new to book ratings. I have read many of her books. Actually, I think this was the 3rd or 4th book of hers that I have read. Most of them are part of a same series. So she uses the same detectives or the same supporting characters. But what's nice about those books, I believe the very first one I picked up of hers, I didn't realize was like that until I went back to find another book and I realized the one I read was book 4 of Detective So-and-so's, series. But you can read them as a standalone. You don't have to read them in order. If you love crime thrillers, definitely pick up any of Lisa Gardner's books. That is what she mostly writes about, and that is definitely one of my top of the mystery, thriller, suspense type books are ones that are crime thrillers. Love them. I've read a lot of crime genres and I really like them. So I think if you like those type of thing, kind of like the whodunit, goes with the detectives, the police, that kind of thing, definitely go for Lisa Gardner. You will like her books if that's the case. Frankie, she's a middle-aged recovering alcoholic. She spends her life looking for those that are lost. This new case brings her to a really rough neighborhood in Boston. So for me, coming from a super small town, and actually the state of Oregon is pretty small in general, most of the towns in here are pretty small, it was really hard for me to understand at first what they were talking about when they were saying Boston, but it was just a neighborhood in Boston. So I guess, these bigger towns, they have neighborhoods that you may never actually go out of, and you can do everything in your one neighborhood. So I kind of picture it as these little cities, towns pretty much probably the same size that I live in, where these neighborhoods are inside of Boston. So it's a really rough neighborhood though. This girl that went missing, she's 15 years old. She is actually from Haiti. Her name is Angelique. I believe that's how you pronounce it. So Angelique disappeared from her high school. I believe it's about almost a year ago by the time we cut to this. I think it was 13 months or 10 months, something like that. She disappeared from her high school. Frankie finds some resistance from law enforcement at first. They kind of just think she's a runaway and it's not really worth their time to look into it, and there's nothing suspicious around it. But Frankie does see some suspicious circumstances as she starts digging in. Family does provide assistance, so the family is helping her, and they do connect her with the different law enforcement. They have very, very little information to go on. There's just no clues out there besides her backpack and I believe maybe a coat or a sweater or something that was left behind, and that's it. That's all. She has a huge task ahead of her, and she really basically will not stop until she finds all the answers. I kind of get the sense that with all of her cases, of course we were just learning only about this one case, but I kind of get the sense that she kind of goes into these cases she is not going to give up. She's not going to take no for an answer. She is a very, very good character. The plot is a little complicated. It's not too complicated. It's pretty, easy to follow, but there's a ton of twists and turns in this book. Make sure when you get towards the end of this book, probably from about the halfway point or so, that you give yourself plenty of time to finish it, because you are not going to want to put it down. The end is so fast paced, and you have no time to put it down, because if you put it down and you pick it back, you're going to want to pick it back up. So give yourself plenty of time to read this, because you're going to want to read that ending in one sitting. This book is really, really engaging, really entertaining. Frankie is such an amazing character. She's complex, she's raw, She's unapologetic. She's real. I mean, you will love this character. I would love it if Lisa Gardner ends up turning this into a new series. Like, I would love to learn more about Frankie. I want to know more about her story. I want to know more about her past. So I really, really hope that she turns this into a series. I think it would be fantastic. Book number 2 for the month of March that I read was Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. I'm not sure if it's Karen or Karin, spelled Karin. The Goodreads rating on this was 4 stars. My rating was also 4 stars. Karen has written quite a few books. I think this is the fourth or fifth book that I have read of hers, so obviously I'm a fan, and I will pretty much pick up anything that I see of hers. And I think when I looked back, I think I rated all of the books I read of hers either 4 or 5 stars. I pick up every book by her because, like I said, I'm a fan. So I really did not know what I was getting into when I went into this book. It's graphic, it's gory. It has a lot of sensitive information with like violence against women. So if that's a trigger for you, definitely just stay away. Don't even go there. She has plenty of other books that you can read that do not go into this subject matter. But the last like 100 pages or so, that's where the stuff happens. If that's something that you are not into, definitely understand. Pick up one of her other books. She is an excellent writer. So this book is really hard to review without giving away too much info. This story connects the stories of 2 women. We have Julia and Anna, who have both gone missing 20 years apart. When Julia went missing, it tore her family apart, and Julia's the one that went missing like 20 years before the second one. And it just tore her family apart. Her family was never the same. This story is told from Julia's family's point of view. So it's point of view from 2 sisters, the 2 remaining sisters, Lydia and Claire, who have been estranged since all that happened. So they have not spoken in almost 20 years. Another tragedy in their family actually brings these 2 sisters back together, and basically they find out, yes, they need to face the truth of their sister's disappearance, come together to try to figure it all out and figure out what really happened to their sister Julia. That's all I'm gonna say. I did give this book 4 stars. It's hard to really explain the reasoning behind the 4 stars. Probably most of it has to do with like I said, I think those last 100 pages were really hard to get through. The characters were very, very well written, well developed as usual. That's definitely one of this author's strengths, is writing those characters. It makes you want to care about them, care what happens to them. She is a stellar writer. So like I said, I do recommend her books. The plot twists on this were so well done and not really necessarily predictable. I mean, like, I did not predict every single one of them, but this one really had me shocked. The main plot twist left me, though, extremely disturbed. And I'm really not easily shocked. I mean, you guys, I am a huge fan of Stephen King books. I started reading them in high school, and I have read so many of them. His movies, I've watched a ton of like horror movies, but some of the stuff in this book, it just really had me disturbed. And I think that's why I came up with the 4 stars. Yeah, it just really shocked me. Anyway, it is a good book though. It's a good book, good writing, good characters. It's just a little disturbing, but I still gave it 4 stars because the book itself is a well-written book with good characters, had those plot twists and everything else, but I just want to put that out there just to forewarn you. Book number 3 for the month of March, The Unhoneymooners. The Goodreads rating on this is 3.98. My rating is 5 stars. This is by Christina Lauren. You may recognize her name because I read one of her books last month. And because of that book I read last month, I did seek out some other books from her. So I have a couple other ones that I would like to read. And this one did not disappoint. So not surprisingly, after reading such a dark book right before this, I really needed something light and something happy and fun and laugh out loud, and that's why I chose this one. This book is about identical twin sisters, Olive and Amy. I don't know why I forgot that, for like all of a sudden it's like boom, out of my head. Unlike her sister Olive, she has an unlucky streak. I mean, just such a bad unlucky streak. You know, it's just like if anything could go wrong, it goes wrong to Olive. On the other hand, her sister Amy, She has like this knack for like winning things. Like she wins every contest, everything she ever enters, sweepstakes, whatever, she wins. She is lucky in everything, in her career, in love. Olive, she has had no luck in love. Her career, she just lost her job. She is just, like I said, unlucky. Amy is getting married, and Olive is the maid of honor, of course, and the best man is the groom's brother, Ethan, who Olive has not had very good encounters with, and she basically hates him more than anything. So you can kind of see where this is going. She has to spend the entire day with him at the wedding and doing, you know, best man, maid of honor stuff, and she's only doing it for her sister. This is all for her sister. She loves her sister and she will do anything for her, so she figures one day she can put up with him and then get through the day, and then she never has to deal with him ever again. Fast forward to the wedding. So the wedding has a buffet. Ethan has a really weird thing about not wanting to eat buffets, so he does not partake in the wedding buffet. He has his own special plate. Olive is allergic to shellfish. I think it was shellfish. And so she does not eat the buffet because apparently it's all like seafood or something on the buffet. So neither one of them eat it. And the entire wedding party comes down with food poisoning. Yes. Isn't that a great way to end your wedding? So the entire wedding party ends up with food poisoning except for Ethan and Olive. Now, because like I said, Amy wins all these contests. Well, one thing she did win was her honeymoon. So she can't, it's like no returns. They can't change anything because she won it on some kind of like contest. So she can't change the dates. She can't even, it's non-refundable. And she can't even give it to somebody because it has to be her and her husband that are going on this honeymoon that they won. So Amy tells Olive, I want you to take this all paid, all inclusive honeymoon and just go enjoy yourself, because they're twin sisters. She can, you know, pretend to be her sister. Well, what they didn't know was that Dane, Amy's new husband, was telling his brother Ethan to do the same thing. So agreeing to a temporary truce, Olive and Ethan, they head to Hawaii pretending to be newlyweds. So you guys, this honestly is such a hilarious like enemies to lovers romance book, which is one of my favorites. I love it when they hate each other and they end up loving each other. It always makes for a laugh out loud book for sure. It's engaging. You're gonna laugh out loud. The banter between Olive and Ethan is absolutely hilarious, and it's natural, like the way that these authors, so Christina Lauren, if you didn't know, it's two different authors writing together. They are so good with dialogue. Like so far, this, like I said, this is the second book I've read of theirs, and dialogue between characters is just so natural. It's like they almost sat there and talked to each other and just wrote out what they were saying. So it's just relatable. You can actually picture these people saying that and you saying it to people. The first half of the book is all about developing Olive and Ethan's like relationship. The second half is after they get back home and settle back in their lives. I could give this book half stars, and I would definitely give it like a 4.5 stars. And this is why. I don't want to give away any spoilers. There are some revelations after they get home that happen that I feel like that the characters did not handle it in the way that you would have pictured them. So, you know, the first half of the book, we're developing the characters. You get to know the characters. And then when these revelations come out, you're just kind of like, like, why would they react that way? This just doesn't make any sense. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. I just kind of felt like those reactions were out of character and just really surprised me. Also, at the very end of the book, there was like a sudden shift of point of view. So it's like we had these certain point of views throughout the whole book, then all of a sudden it just shifted to a different person's point of view, and I was like, whoa, okay, that came out of nowhere. Like, what the heck was that? And I've never read a book that has done that before. But let me just say, the ending was amazing. It wrapped up nicely. I was happy with it. I was satisfied with it. And even though there's just those few little things, and those things are literally like at the end of the book. So don't let it deter you. It is an entertaining book. It's engaging. You'll love it. Those things may not bug you the way they bug me. I feel like those kind of things are definitely subjective. It's an excellent book. I cannot wait to read more from Christina Lauren. I cannot highly recommend these authors enough. Book number 4, Little Secrets by Jennifer Hillier. The Goodreads rating was 4.19, so definitely persuaded me to read this. Although I realized I had it on my like want to read list on Goodreads for a while now. I had just forgotten about it. My rating was 5 stars. So this is actually the second Jennifer Hillier book that I've read. I read Jar of Hearts, I think back in 2019. And it's a great book. Highly recommend it. Go read it. That was my first experience with Jennifer Hillier, and that's probably why I put this one on my want to read list after I read that one. So Maren and Derek, they're college sweethearts. They both run successful businesses. They're quite wealthy, have a lot of money. So Maren and her son Sebastian, they were doing some Christmas shopping. They were at Pike Place Market in Seattle. That's where they live, is in Seattle. Super, super busy because it's Christmas time. Maren got a text message. Her son, of course, was being, really rambunctious. I want to say he was like 4. I couldn't remember after I read it. I didn't go back and look at it. He was, he was done for the day. For those of you who've had children like me, they're done. They were done Christmas shopping, and she said just one more place we have to go. Then she promised to go get him a special lollipop that he likes to get when they're there at the market. Same time, she gets a text message from somebody. She literally lets go of Sebastian's hand for like 30 seconds while she sends a quick text message. She turns around, he's gone. From that day forward, as you probably would guess, their lives are just torn apart. I mean, nothing is the same after that. So we fast forward about 1.5 years or so after Sebastian is kidnapped, and Maren has never recovered from her guilt. She feels so guilty. She's joined a support group for parents of missing children, which, kind of helps but doesn't really help, but it's just some people that understand what she's going through. And the case goes cold. Maren hires a private investigator pretty early on in the investigation, it sounds like. She hires this private investigator because basically the police know nothing. Unfortunately, the PI also does not uncover any more clues to Sebastian's kidnapping, but one thing she does discover while she's doing her investigation, and also just side note, Maren's husband does not know that she hired a private investigator. She did this on her own. I think she was afraid of her husband, thinking she was just too obsessed with this. But while the private investigator is just doing, just general like investigating, she discovers that Maren's husband is having an affair with a much younger woman named Kenzie. Maren, of course, is very upset to hear this, but instead of going and approaching her husband about it, she looks at it like, okay, Sebastian is gone. I may never have him back again, but I am not going to lose my husband too. So she decides to try to make things better with her husband, but she feels like the only way she can do that is to check out the competition. This book is told in 2 different points of view. We're hearing from Maren and we're hearing from Kenzie. We learn that Maren is a successful owner of upscale, I think salons, I'm guessing like hair salons, spas, that kind of thing. And Kenzie is a struggling student and also like a barista at a coffee shop. There's some turns and stuff. You think when you start reading this book in the very beginning, you think you know what this book's going to be all about, and wow, no, it totally makes a completely different shift. And it makes you think, when you are presented with certain situations in your life, how far you would go. That's all I'm going to say. This was an excellent novel. It kept me engaged from the very beginning and on the edge of my seat. I mean, I wanted to read. I think I went for a very long spell staying up late at night reading this book. It was so good. Content, of course, is very heart-wrenching, when you're dealing anytime with a child being kidnapped, but there's also lots of twists and turns, shocking and surprising revolutions that I did not see coming, at all. I think every single one of them surprised me. I don't even think I had an inkling of anything until the very end. It was so crazy. But the end was so fantastic. You honestly will not see it coming. So highly recommend this book. Pick it up. It is such a good book. Book number 5 was Every Last Fear by Alex Finlay. The Goodreads rating is 4.06 and mine was 5 stars. So another 5-star rating book. So this thriller is about the Pine family. Matt Pine, is it Matt? Yes. Matt Pine, he is a student at NYU. He was out partying with his friends the night before, comes back to his dorm room and finds out that his mom, his dad, his little brother, and his little sister all died while vacationing in Mexico. The Mexican police are claiming that it was from a gas leak, but the FBI thinks That is not accurate. So the FBI come and approach Matt, and they won't tell him the whole story. They're just saying that they need him to go down to Mexico because the local authorities will not release the body, will not tell the FBI anything. It has to be a family member, so that they won't tell him anything else. They just tell him that they're not sure if the local police are investigating correctly and or telling them everything. So this isn't the first time the Pine family has been in the media spotlight. So of course this tragedy makes huge headlines, and Matt's privacy pretty much is like out the window. Matt's older brother, who is currently serving a life sentence for murder, was the subject of a documentary that was suggesting that Danny, that's Matt's brother, was wrongfully convicted. Well, this documentary put a really bad kind of spotlight on the hometown. Matt has to go back to his hometown to bury his family, and when he goes there, he's met by a lot of hostile characters because, like I said, they blame his family for this really bad light that the town was put under by this documentary. Although Matt had nothing to do with the documentary, he refused to be part of it, refused to be in it, they still blame him because of his family. Details start coming out about his family's death that makes Matt think that this is related also to Danny's murder case. So he starts to try to figure out what actually happened to his family. He also has a secret about his brother's murder case that he doesn't want anybody to know, and he doesn't tell anybody about until later on. This novel is told through multiple points of view. It alternates between past and present, and sometimes this can make a book, you know, kind of difficult to read, but this flowed so well. I actually had no issue at all with the multiple subjects and the multiple, you know, past and present. I had no issue at all, and it was really easy to keep track of. The characters are interesting. All of their like own situations that they have going on in their life is interesting. You want to know more about them. And I was so invested in figuring out like what happened to all the characters. I wanted to know. This book had me from the start. It was heart-pounding, it was intense, and it had a very satisfying ending. That's what I'm going to tell you, because you need to go into this book not knowing anything and you will love it. I've never read anything by this author. I don't know how many books he has written. I don't know anything about him, but I definitely will be looking for more from him. Book number 6 is called The Secrets He Kept by Jackie Walsh. Goodreads rating 3.92, my rating 3.5. You can't do half-star ratings on Goodreads, so I can't remember if on my Goodreads if you would see it as a 3 or a 4. I can't remember. I wish you could do half stars. I think everybody complains about that on Goodreads. So Sally, this is about Sally. Sally's day started out like any other at her salon where she works. It's not her salon, but she works there as a hairdresser until her first client of the day innocently shows her a picture, and in the picture is this client's boyfriend and his dad. Well, the boyfriend's dad happens to be Sally's husband. Dun dun dun. So obviously she was a little disturbed. In that one moment, Sally discovers that her husband, Tom, has been keeping a huge secret, and one that's going to basically change their life forever. Okay. The 3.5 stars. Honestly, like I was so conflicted while reading this book. I'm actually so surprised by the number of 4 and 5 star ratings. After I read this book, I went back and looked at the reviews. There are so many 4 and 5 star ratings. I'm really shocked. Maybe I'm being too hard on it. I don't know. But I was interested enough in the book to finish reading it. I did want to know what happened, but the characters drove me crazy, like drove me nuts, especially Sally and Tom. All these two needed to do was sit down and talk and have a conversation. They couldn't even do that. It was just like, oh, we'll talk about this later. No, talk about it now, and then we won't have all this stuff going on. Like, honestly. And don't even get me started on the 15-year-old daughter, Amber. Yeah. I have boys, you know, I don't have girls. Maybe they're a little bit different. I don't know, but she drove me nuts. And how, yeah. I don't know. But here's what I did like about the book. The way the story unraveled was really good. Like the writer, she's a good writer. I mean, I'm not saying anything wrong about the writing. She's a really good writer. It unraveled really, really well. I loved how everything wove together. I thought that was really good. I definitely wanted to solve the mystery that happens like within the main storyline. So you're going to have this mystery that happens like within the main storyline. And you really do get invested in that and want to know who did and what happened and what's, you know, what happened, you know, that kind of, you do want to know. Here's what I did like. I felt like there were so many secrets and lies that didn't have to be secrets and lies to actually go along with the story. Like, they didn't really need to happen. Like, there was just, like, I felt like there was a couple, like, side, like, lies and stories that, okay, why did they even say that? Because we never even pick up on it later on. Also, too many inconsistencies and contradictions with both the storyline and the characters that had to happen a few times throughout the book that really stood out to me. The book, though, is really well written, and like I said, the pace was really good. It's a really fast read, and I think that many people would enjoy it. Maybe it's just me. Like I said, there's a ton of 4 and 5 star ratings out there, so maybe it was just me. Let me know if you've read this book or anything by this author. I've never read anything else by this author, so I'd be really curious. Last book we're going to talk about is one that I did not finish. You know, I very, very, very rarely do not finish a book. This book was called You Deserve Each Other. The Goodreads rating is 3.89, and it's by Sarah Hogle. It's Hogle. So it's been a long time since I haven't found a book that I couldn't finish it. I only made it to 36%. You guys know I read only ebooks, so it was 36%. The reason why I could not go any further on this book was because of the main character, Naomi. I disliked her so much, but not in a way where, you know, you dislike a character because they're killing people. Yeah, you don't like those characters. No, not in that way. I even did something I didn't normally do, and I went and looked at reviews before I finished the book. Mainly because I wanted to see, is this getting any better? Like, does she redeem herself? Is she always like this? I mean, she was just not a nice person. Like, she was selfish. She was not very nice to her boyfriend. I mean, it just drove me crazy. She drove me crazy. So honestly, there are so many 4 and 5 star reviews on this book. Like, people loved it. But what's interesting is somebody would rate it like a 4, a 3 or a 4, and then they would say, well, yeah, you know, the character kind of drove me crazy, but she gets better in the last 15% of the book. Like, I do not want to read 85% of a book where a character drives me crazy and I can't stand her for her to redeem herself 15% last book. No, I'm sorry. I'm not that invested in this book. It's just, yeah, I mean, it seems like, though, a ton of people really hated her as much as I did. So I just decided this was a no for me. I did not want to even waste my time on it. It was seriously like I was sighing. I was rolling my eyes. I would put the book down. I would pick it up. It was just driving me so crazy. I decided I just had to move on. But I would be curious if any of you have read this book, because like I said, it has a lot of ratings, a lot of good ratings. So I'm just curious. Should I have held out a little bit longer? Let me know. I still have it. I could still read it, but I just don't see myself doing so unless somebody tells me that I should read it. There we go. 6 books read in the month of March. Let me know if you have read any of these books. Let me know if there's any of these books that you plan on reading thanks to my review. I will have all the books linked down below. I'll have links to their Goodreads page and also links to their on Amazon. I will also have a link to my Goodreads page if you want to go over there and follow me, be my friend over there, and we can look at what each other has been reading. And I will see you guys next month in another book review. Bye, guys.